is Derby Week, that special ritual where North London meets South London. Arsenal, top of the table. Spurs stuck together with duct tape and string. And yet, we still convince ourselves we've got a chance. But just when you thought we were all out of injuries, Bergvall had a setback, Sarr got a knock on international duty, and we've got just the 11 others out or struggling, so could be a toughie. Julie will lead a serious discussion about weird and wonderful footballers' names. John Pratt and Stefan Kuntz bound to feature. And back to the Gooner theme, we've got a bunch of amazing but true stories, which include scarf burning, punch-ups and citizens' arrests. And Donald Trump has pardoned Joe Lewis. What does it mean for Spurs? Is it a pre-season tour of Mar-a-Lago? Who knows? That's it. This is a nice one, Cyril. Let's get on with it. Nice one, Cyril. So, welcome to Nice One, Cyril. I'm Simon Lipson. With me today, as ever, Julie Welch, Spurs historian, journalist, and all-round doyen. We have Kev Acott, as usual, to spread cheer and joy, and Misha Mansoor. Look, let's get some stuff out of the way here, Misha. Okay, so first of all, Misha Mansoor, where do you work?
Not that far away, actually, Simon.
Be specific. Be specific.
Kind of like somewhere 1.7 miles away from my house.
You work at Arsenal, don't you, Misha? You work at Arsenal. Now, let me ask you, in what capacity?
I'm actually a tour guide.
A tour guide?
Yeah, a tour guide.
Are you now, or have you ever been, an Arsenal fan?
Well, actually, funny story behind that, Simon, because I thought you might ask me what were the origins of my Tottenhamship. So basically, I thought it's a bit like Harry Potter. You know where they sit there with a sorting hat on? And I've got a big brother and a big sister, and he's Arsenal and she's Tottenham. So when I was like 4 years old, I was asked what I was. And it literally was like almost like having the sorting hat on. And I didn't like my brother, and I liked my sister, so I went Tottenham.
So it was almost like an awakening.
Chosen.
You were chosen.
Yeah.
You were chosen. Okay,
Yeah.
well, look, I think we're going to let it go then. One other question. I mean, just theoretically, you're a tour guide around Arsenal. Theoretically, would it be possible, say, to go into the manager's office and maybe, I don't know, put some Spurs bit of memorabilia or poster or something Spurs into his office? Would that be possible, theoretically?
Well, theoretically, I suppose so. I mean, I'm not sure if anyone's ever done that. Do you think they have, Simon?
I don't know. I'd be staggered if someone was that cheeky. Anyway, look, let's talk about the North London. Well, I think we've cleared you. You have been cleared by the committee. Julie, we've got this match coming up on, is it Sunday? Sunday afternoon. It's, oh God, it's always the same, isn't it, with Arsenal? We go there in hope, not quite expectation, and it's dashed. What's your feeling about the match, generally?
Well, last week we sort of touched on this issue a bit, didn't we? And had this sort of vague kind of waft of optimism that something was going to happen that would make us win. And I have to tell you, I really don't feel like that now. But I don't want to depress you all. The last week or so in the international break, I don't suppose I'm the only one who's been counting important Arsenal injuries. And I was really, really gutted to learn that Gabriel, their most influential player, may be out of it.
Well, look, I'm disappointed because you sound like a hissing balloon deflating in front of us. Because last week you were definitely thinking we had a chance. Kevin, you were sort of unexpectedly optimistic about our chances. Has the intervening week deflated you as well?
No. The Sarr injury, I've read a couple of contradictory things. I mean, we always give contradictory messages about our injured players anyway, I think. So at first that looked really bad. Now it looks like it might not be. I don't know. It looks like Gabriel's is bad, which is a good thing. I mean, it would be stupid to say, oh, we're definitely going to win. I don't think I've ever said that about a match against Arsenal. No one sane would ever say that. But we've got a chance there. Still think, even though they've got a better team this year than last year, I still think there's something a bit wobbly about them. There's something vulnerable about them. I don't think Arteta is a great manager. I think he's done a good job with massive resources, but he's not a great manager. And I think in a one-off, we could maybe do it. I mean, the inevitable pattern of the match will be them attacking and us defending, I think. Them attacking in their usual flair way, i.e. long throws and corners. And as long as we can ride our luck a bit, we could snatch one near the end. So in fact, I'm going to predict right now, 1-0 to us.
I like it. I like this, Kev. Do you think there's any chance? I mean, we're thinking double pivot, aren't we? We're thinking Bentancur and Palhinha. Do you think there's any chance you'll go 3 at the back? You can chuck Danso in there between Van der Ven and Romero?
Frank, I still find Frank quite slightly difficult to predict, actually. Because he does make changes from match to match supposedly to suit the team we're playing, and he gets it right sometimes. He particularly gets it right away. I wouldn't do it. I'd stick with 4, but I don't know.
Okay. Well, look, Misha, you've been hovering around that dump over the last couple of weeks. What is there a sort of a general feeling about the place? Are they sensing victory in their nostrils?
Blood, actually. They're smelling blood. They're laughing at us, Simon. I'm telling you. Like, yeah, because basically I'm the only Tottenham fan in the whole... No, I think there's someone that works in the office. There's like 2,000 people that work at Arsenal who's Tottenham. But basically I'm the only front of house person, any person. I'm the target. So they all direct all their ridicule at me. Every time anyone does anything Tottenham or Spursy, they all laugh at me. So there's a lot riding on this. But I was in the home dressing room today. All the shirts are hanging up. There's no point in me doing anything because they're only the sort of like display shirts. So I can't,
You couldn't put like itching powder in them or
there's no
rip
point.
a hole in.
There isn't.
No.
There's no point.
Okay.
But I think they have got quite a good collection. I don't think Arteta is that great. But I was saying that to this man called Neil from Peterborough today because I was working there today.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting really carried away because I'm supposed to be really professional there. But I was like, I don't think Arteta is that good, actually, Neil. And then I saw all the groundsmen coming towards me. And I went, I'm just joking. Because I could actually lose my job because I get carried away sometimes thinking, oh, it's all banter. But then the managers get actually quite angry.
Do you get to see, some of the key personalities there? Do you ever see Arteta? Do you ever see the players around the place?
Yeah, not on match days. Well, no, I mean, occasionally, like on match days, they're all very sequestered. So I'm working actually this Sunday before the match doing tours, which will be very interesting. I'm quite excited about it. I don't know why, but I am. Because there probably won't even be any Tottenham fans on the tour.
Well, look, should you do something untoward, I think we'll all be behind you.
I won't have a job. It's the trouble.
We don't care about that. I mean, if you can get something, I mean, anything to stick an oar in, we'll be eternally grateful.
No, I'm going to take one for the team, as it were.
Take one for the team. Splendid. Julie, we could defend and lose, or we could try and attack and lose. And basically, I'm saying we're going to lose. But is there a scenario in which we say to Arsenal, who I think we all agree are not a great team. They're a good team, very solid. But is there a scenario in which we actually take the game to them a bit and maybe Solanke's back? Maybe there's a kind of a collective, why, with nothing really to lose? Or is that just not how you perceive Frank would approach the match?
I suppose I could sort of come on like one of those sort of boring guys who are always on other podcasts sort of and wang on about, he's got to play Dogie and Odebear on the left or something like that. I don't know. I mean, my fantasy would, as I think I ran it up the flagpole last week and nobody sort of saluted at all, just stick Danso in the back line and play Mickey up front. But then, of course, it robs everyone of one of Mickey's greatest assets, which is that he can run incredibly fast. So, I mean, I just have one fantasy about this, which is that somehow Mickey will recreate that goal, that Copenhagen goal. I have no idea what Frank will do tactically because, as Kev was saying, he rattles the kaleidoscope every week, depending on who's still walking on two legs.
Yeah, but he has had a pretty good record at Brentford anyway against the better teams, and my sense is that he does that by setting up to be obdurate and difficult, hard to beat, as opposed to going out and taking the game to other teams. But we've got better players theoretically than Brentford. Let's have a little talk about fullbacks, because we talked about this last week. For my money, Destiny Udogie is by a distance better than Spence at left back for all sorts of reasons, and that Spence is by a distance better than Porro at right back. Can you see that happening, or is he? Because it does seem as though Porro has somehow insinuated himself into this team and cannot get rid of him for love nor money.
No, and I watched one of those little I don't know what you call them, little sort of propaganda videos that the club comes out with, where the players are having nice chats with nice people. And I think it was Van der Ven. So she was saying to all the players, so who's the real personality in the dressing room? Who's the one who makes you laugh? And Van der Ven immediately said Porro. And I suppose,
why doesn't that surprise me, Kev? Why doesn't that surprise me?
No, that's the thing, isn't it? I wonder to what extent Frank plays him because he's seen as a good man for the team, a bit of a leader, and he does come across like that. It's just unfortunate his footballing ability doesn't quite match it.
Do you think he's kind of the Jordan Henderson of the Spurs team? There's this sort of good bloke. He rallies the boys. He can't play for toffee, obviously, but somehow he's seen by deluded managers as indispensable.
No, he's the prankster. There's always one.
There's always one.
Yeah. He's kind of twat who would throw someone's socks across the dressing room into someone's tea or something like that. There's always been one over the decades. That's him, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, Misha, where do you? I mean, Porro, let's be honest, is a good-looking boy. He's an ingratiator.
Yeah, not as good-looking as Kev, though.
No, obviously not. I mean, that's silly.
No,
I mean, I wouldn't even.
Yeah, come on.
That's just daft. I should just explain to our listeners that you, Misha, and Kev are partners. Van der Ven this week, playing for Holland. Van der Ven went on some bonkers run where he beat about 5 players at 150 miles an hour. Did you see that?
One where he got felled at the very end.
He got felled. It was, Oh, he had to get himself out of a sort of a facing the wrong way type of thing. And then he'd made a turn and played the ball acutely across the first player and then just went. You could see the sort of the despair of the chasers because there's no way they're going to catch him. He's a hell of a player, isn't he? He's somebody we have had discussions about playing him up front in the absence of 52 centre forwards at the moment.
He's actually reminds me of Bergkamp. I met Dennis Bergkamp last year.
Don't boast about that, for goodness sake. No, that's awful.
I think Van der Ven actually does have a bit of Bergkamp, quite a lot of him in him. In
as much as he's Dutch and good looking.
No, apart from those two things, which are true, he is magnificent.
He is. He's quite the
unique
unit, isn't he? Julie,
yeah.
Let's have a little talk about Bergwijn. I heard this week that because he was hit in the face by a ball, wasn't he? And that felled him. It's a bit concerning, don't you think, that here he is, nearly 3 weeks on and not considered to be fit enough to join up with Sweden?
I didn't know he'd been actually hit in the jaw. I thought he had knee knack or something like that, but what do I know? So still, tell me the bad news, Simon. So Bergwijn, or Bergwijn, as we like to call him, is not going to be able to turn out against the other lot at the weekend. Is that right?
It's certainly the suggestion is that he's not yet fit enough, and this is more than your sort of bog standard 2-week concussion protocol thing. Sarr, as Kev was saying, I think he's looking doubtful, although hasn't been at his best, has he, for a while.
I'm looking a bit weedy for some time. And so Barney's got the fractured jaw, and so we'll be out for several weeks. Yeah.
Are you fit? How's your knee?
The knee is probably not quite ready. It's a bit like Solanke's ankle. It's just, one of those things which is just going to go on.
Yeah.
Tantalizingly nearly better. I just don't think I'll be able to make it.
We're not even going to see you on the bench.
No, I'm not even. Well, I might be on the bench, sitting there in my puffer coat, everything, just sort of with the boys.
Just in case. We could use a bit of know-how towards the end of the game, just game management. This is one of my favourites, Kev. Game management.
Yeah.
What does it mean? It's just another one of these sort of buzz phrases. It just means don't fuck it up. We're winning 1-0. Don't fuck it up. That's game management, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think people talk of Frank as being a master of game management, and it's just being a manager, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
I think, yes. Like you say, if we're winning, let's keep trying to win, but let's not try too hard to score more goals. And Frank's pragmatic, and he does that, and so he's a good game manager.
Yeah. I can't imagine there being a break in the game, towards the end, and he calls everyone over, saying, listen, let's manage the game, boys. But he is a pragmatist. Misha, you've got a Lego head, your gaff, your work gaff. He's taken him a while, hasn't it, to get to, a team that sadly looks as though it's going to succeed this year. How has he been regarded by the fans hitherto? I mean, have they been patient with him, or have they been called for him to go? Because we don't care either way, of course. But what's the sort of underlying sense with him over the last 5-6 years?
I meet fans, hundreds of fans a day, and overwhelmingly people really, really support him and they rate him. And there's a lot of optimism this year, which so far seems to be justified, that they're going to at least top the league, at any rate. And I've never heard everyone wants the team to thinks he's, good and he's going to do it. He's just been unlucky so far, a lot of times.
Okay.
So this is the year, and I haven't heard any disgruntlement.
Well, it's an interesting insight, because I think, we at Spurs, we've over the last few years, Julie, we've had this kind of churn, haven't we, with the managers, and they don't last very long. One way or another, they either sabotage themselves, or we just decide they're not for us. Is there something to be said? I mean, we don't want to give Arsenal praise unnecessarily, but is there something to be said for sticking with a manager and just saying, look, okay, we won't win anything for 2, 3, 4 years. I mean, Alex Ferguson didn't win anything for I don't know how many years before he started winning everything.
I think managers Ferguson are an exception, and most squads, especially if there's not a lot of churn in the squad, actually get fed up of the manager after about 3 years. He's told them everything that, he's going to tell them, and they're actually quite appreciative of a change. It's interesting that the two Spurs squads got fed up of Mourinho and Conte after 2 seasons, but that's probably because they knew what Mourinho and Conte were going to say, because they'd heard so much about him anyway. They didn't get fed up of Pochettino till his 5th and final season, I don't think. I just wonder how managers like Ferguson do it. Ferguson, of course, was, just ruled by fear and anger and charisma. So I don't know whether longevity is a good thing in Arteta's case or not. I mean, if he doesn't win the title this season, what do we think? Is that, has he been the bridesmaid once too often?
I think he'll be gone, except what Misha's saying about their fans being very positive and not remotely disgruntled. I'm sure that's true. At the same time, if they lost to us, drew the next one, lost the one after, they'd turn on him. They didn't like him for the first couple of years. There was a lot of sort of quite public disgruntlement. And I don't think that's particularly about Arsenal fans. I think that probably is just about football fans generally, but they are a bit worse, obviously.
So I think if they lost this game, I think he'd be forgiven. I think it'd be seen as a fluke if Arsenal lost this Sunday. I don't have, my hopes are not great for Tottenham's victory, I'm afraid. Being realistic, but I think they'd be forgiven if Arsenal Spurs it up. But if they didn't win the title this year, then I think he's out, because he's got probably the best collection of players together, and everyone's, I can't tell you the buzz that's been in the stadium about them all and in the shop and everything. So if he doesn't win this time, he's gone.
Every time you bring a new manager in, he then has to take on the previous manager's little vision, which in turn was, him taking on the previous manager's vision. And in the end, you kind of have a hodgepodge of a squad, and it's all very well having a go at Frank. Oh God, we haven't looked like anything. We're struggling and can't win at home. But at the same time, we got a few players in while he was with us, but most of them he inherited. So, he is trying to impose his style, tactics, vision on a team that's not his team. And we keep doing that with managers. And now I'm the last person to, I hated Mourinho, just a vile, awful ego, and Conte possibly worse. I don't know. What do you think, Kev? Was Conte more obnoxious? I can't decide.
Yeah, well, I still struggle with Mourinho, because I think when Mourinho was first at Chelsea, I secretly really liked him. I think he had charm, personality. You knew he didn't take football too seriously, actually. Serious enough to do a good job, but not, And then the second time, he was back there, he changed, things had changed, whatever, in his life. And by the time he got to us, he was horrible, and that charm had gone. I still think he was more charming than Conte.
What got me was Conte's weave. I couldn't take my eyes off Conte, because I kept thinking, is that going to blow off?
I don't think it was a weave. I think it was a hair transplant. Listen, this is key stuff.
Wait, can I just say something? I can't get over the chewing. Thomas Frank's chewing. Oh my God, stop it.
How would you rank tolerability between Thomas Frank's chewing and Guardiola's spitting? Where do you stand?
I think the chew. I hate the spitting, but it's kind of, the chewing is more. It's kind of like evoking of murderous feelings.
Thomas better watch out. The thing with the spitting that I can't deal with is that he just spits incessantly, Guardiola, throughout a match. It's revolting. And I think, does he do this at home? Is he standing in the kitchen, spitting on the floor? Yeah, what's that about? The other thing, Kev, we've seen our friend Gary of Harlow recently talking about Pochettino. I think, in the sort of the frustration with Thomas Frank, and Pochettino was the last manager we had who did play with the kind of whatever the Tottenham thing is, the Tottenham way, the flair. He's the last manager who somehow pulled it off, and we were very close. That said, we failed. But there's talk about him coming back, and he's the next in line. Is that now that Levy's gone? Levy obviously didn't want him. Is that feasible?
I think it's feasible. I hope it's not feasible for at least a couple of seasons. Even if Pochettino just suddenly, was free of all, the America job and was desperate to come back, and no, I don't think it would be right. He wasn't perfect, Pochettino. We played great football until that last season, 2 seasons. I still don't quite know how we got to the Champions League final.
No,
I don't. It was bizarre, really. We
was.
weren't that good.
Yeah. That was it was bizarre. It was extraordinary. I remember saying to my daughter when we somehow squeezed through against Ajax, I said, "We don't do this. Spurs don't do this kind of thing. It's so ridiculous. It's so surreal." It was it, but still notwithstanding, it was a pretty good side. There's some pretty good players in that team. Dele at his peak, and Ericsson, of course, Harry Kane, Sonny. That's a good team. That's a good team. Maybe not a Champions League winning team, but it's a really good side. Let's move on. And Kev, I think you've got a scarf burning tale.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was thinking one of my sort of Arsenal towns, the Compton Arms, that used to be a really good pub, despite being right next to Highbury Islington, or just around the corner from Highbury Islington Tube. Compton Arms was a really good pub, and it was an Arsenal pub. And as you walk in, there was a little sign behind the bar saying, "We hate Spurs." And it was such a good pub. I was absolutely fine with that. And it was full of interesting people, some of whom may well even have been Arsenal fans, if you can go with the whole interesting Arsenal.
That sounds a bit of a tall story, but anyway, go on, carry on.
Yeah. And I was there with a friend of mine, I don't know, before it changed into the dreadful restaurant bar type thing it is now. And it was packed, and it was the night of an Arsenal game. It was after an Arsenal game. And we jokingly, very quietly started singing Yid Army. And then we were very drunk, and then we started sort of singing it louder and louder. And then we just sort of got bored and slightly embarrassed and stopped. And then confessed to each other that we had scanned the whole pub. Is there anyone here that's likely to actually take offence? And we'd both decided no. So we knew we'd be fine, but it still felt like a little moment of triumph.
So there was a kind of a risk assessment, and then you did what needed to be done. I've got another story, actually. It's possibly my favourite Arsenal Spurs story, and I'm not a violent man, never have been. But I was walking outside the old White Hart Lane, and it was a derby match, and two Arsenal fans were walking towards us wearing their Arsenal scarves, and a Spurs fan just in front of me just walked up. As he was passing the Arsenal fans, smashed one of them in the face. He went down, and he said, and he very casually turned and said, "You shouldn't wear your scarf, mate." That's just the way it goes. You don't wear your scarf. You get a punch and you lose a few teeth. That's what happens. It's the nature of the game. Julie, any sort of incidental Spurs Arsenal nonsense for us?
Nothing that I can really divulge here. As soon as I know anyone supports Arsenal, however nice they seem, I defriend them immediately, because there is, if you are an Arsenal fan, there is some taint in you, obviously. It even mainly people of, let's say in their 20s, 30s and 40s, people who glommed onto Arsenal during the Wenger years. Bit more lenient with people who watched Arsenal, let's say, well, in the 70s, actually, 1971. Yeah, that was pretty shit if you were a Spurs supporter. Let's say, certainly around the late 70s, 80s, I don't mind so much, but anybody who copped onto Arsenal during the Wenger years, which is when football started to get really popular amongst the wrong sort of person.
Yeah.
That's it between us. We can never be friends. It will never happen. There is something morally wrong with these people. That is my opinion. Whereas if you're a Spur, you see, if you support Spurs, particularly from, the early 20s onwards, or maybe even during the 90s, when, apart from 2 cups that bookended that decade, Spurs were a bit shit, let's face it. Certainly if you started supporting Spurs during the early part of this century, I think, good for you. You are a solid type. You stand apart from the crowd. You don't just follow glory, because if you did, you wouldn't be supporting Spurs, however much of a twat you are. That's my attitude.
Well, there's a kind of an inherent twattishness, isn't there, about supporting Spurs, because we don't win anything. It's all hope over, achievement. And yet there's a sort of a warmth and, I don't know, it's just something that makes us all bond in our sad lives. Misha, I think it's fair to say that most Spurs fans, actually, I'm not among them. I don't hate Arsenal, partly because to me, they're just another team that we have to be better than. And I can't be bothered wasting emotion and energy on any specific team because we've got to just be better than everyone else. And if they're better than us, that's our problem, isn't it? But Arsenal obviously does raise the hackles of most Spurs fans. I think because Spurs fans still see us, we still see ourselves as rivals. But Arsenal have kind of gone away from us, haven't they, in terms of, where they are as a club.
I don't believe anything you've just said, though, about not being that bothered anymore. Can I just...
No, I promise you.
You're lying. And I think you were the man that... It was you what smashed that man in the face.
All
Simon,
right, I did, but
reckon.
that was then. This is now.
Can I say also, Julie, I admire your integrity and how you have decided that you're okay about people who have always supported Arsenal, but not about the kind of, fair weather fans. And I don't think you go far enough, though. I mean, my brother, I actually disowned him as well. I mean, come on. Don't be wishy-washy.
Spurs fans are quite, they hate Arsenal. They see them as direct rivals. Do Arsenal, because they have achieved this sort of, they're a bit beyond us at the moment. Do they see Spurs in the same way, or do they save most of their spittle and nastiness for, I don't know, Man City or Chelsea?
Well, they don't fear us, I'm afraid. What hurts the most is they do actually they mock us. Charlie George and Perry Groves, who do legend tours at Arsenal, call us the mob down the road. And a lot of my colleagues won't even talk to me. Like some of them just pretend I'm not there. They're actually quite, And we've had a few incidents, but I'm not allowed to talk about it until it's all,
We can wait for the industrial tribunal, can't we, for that one?
Yeah, exactly. Because I had to sign the whole NDAs and everything. So they don't. I mean, they're not even scared. They're looking forward to it. It's a bit like throwing the Christians to the lions kind of thing. We are voluntarily, willingly going there on Sunday for them to make a mockery of and rip apart. They are not frightened. They're laughing. They're laughing at us.
That's why we hate them, isn't it? That kind of actual sort of that belief in themselves that isn't really backed up with any particularly good football.
And they don't have much of a European trophy cabinet, do they?
No.
Let's be honest. No. I mean, that's a bit of the tour, Misha, surely. Yeah. That is a bit pointless, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. They lose sleep over that,
I bet they do. Well, let's move on. Julie, we were talking, I alluded to footballers' names. And I tell you why this occurred to me the other day, because I was watching Sky Sports on I think it was last Saturday, and the banner was running through with all of the up-to-date, I think, women's Champions League matches. And it said Juventus won, goal scorer, God. And I thought, wow. I mean, if you got God on your team. Anyway, I had to investigate, so I Googled it. And her name is Emma Stolen Goods. I mean, it's even better. But it's actually got that funny Danish O with the diagonal line through it. So it's Emma Stolen Gude. But Sky had it as God, and I thought, this is great, because we've got a guy called Destiny, which I think's incredibly romantic, and it's a brilliant name for a footballer, Destiny. You've got a few more for us.
Me?
Yes. I'm sure I started that with Julie, but yeah.
I was so transfixed by your mastery of Norwegian or whatever it is.
Who wouldn't be?
Then, first of all, this comes courtesy of my friend Stephen Pollard, journalist, editor, and Spurs supporter. Sorry,
yes, he is. Yeah,
person, and it's his squad of rude names of footballers, and I'm going to try and read it out without laughing.
Okay.
So,
fire away.
I'm sorry. Seaman, penis, fuck all, de cock, fanny, wanker, fox, minge, shite, Shirtlift, Kuntz, Assman, Kaka, Windass, Goodwillie, Chitu, Ufati, Quinn.
That's quite the collection, isn't it? For my money, the winner there is Shitu. I don't know why. It just appeals to my scatological mind. Let's other funny names. Kev, you got any for us?
Kaka, people never pointed it out at the time. It was like,
no, that's a good point. Yeah,
we don't point out his comical name.
Sometimes you get a name that's apposite, wouldn't you? John Pratt, obviously, who was perfectly named. I quite like Danny Invincible. That's a cracking name, isn't it, for a footballer? I don't know if he was.
I think we're missing the obvious one here. Arsenal.
Yes, good point. Very good. Good point. Well made. Yeah.
Thank you very much. When I take a lot of pictures of the people that come on the tours. If I don't like them, I just cut out the NAL and stand here, and I always, every time.
There must be so many arses out there. That's wonderful. Well done, you. There was another name I wanted to, and I can't remember. No, I think Fabian Cool. Fabian Cool.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
That's a cracking name.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about silly names, especially if you're northern, did you know that Trump is another name for fard? I just thought that might make a nice little link.
Well, do you know what? You're doing my job for me, Julie. I'm feeling slightly redundant now because Trump has pardoned Joe Lewis. I don't know what that means other than that, just says to me peas in a pod.
My first thought was I didn't realise Joe Lewis was that corrupt and that dodgy.
No.
To be pardoned by Trump, you're going to be some kind of criminal.
Yes, of course.
Every single one. Serious. I'm sort of being serious here because. So what was it? What and why? Why did Trump pardon him?
Not even youth mayor of New York. Who's his team?
Yeah, well, yeah, he's is he not Hamas? I don't know.
His team is Arsenal.
Yeah, of course he supports Arsenal, as did Bin Laden.
Yeah.
Bin Laden. Yeah.
Exactly. As does Keir Starmer, as does Jeremy Corbyn, as did Sunak. Mm.
Whereas we've got Anthony Costa of Blue, right? And he's one of our boys.
And Bob Marley.
Bob Marley. Kenneth Branagh, Julie, he's a Spurs man, I think.
We had Professor Ayer and Peter Cook.
Peter Cook, yeah. No. Michael McIntyre. That was an impression, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, let's have a quick talk about Tony Galvin. Now, Tony Galvin, for some of you may not know of Tony Galvin, a stalwart of our 80s team from Hull. I think we bought him. I'm not sure about that. He was one of... Kev, would you agree with me? He was a kind of quotidian left-winger who just looked so ordinary, but was so effective. He did everything you need your left winger to do without ever looking like, Ginola was your archetypal flair left winger. Tony Galvin was just steady up and down. He got to the byline and he got the ball over, and he didn't look like anything, but he was. And I should have said, of course, he's been taken ill with a stroke this week, so that's why we want to talk about him and celebrate him.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think he's one of those players, regardless of this, that we should look back on fondly, and I think we all do. I think he should be celebrated. He was one of those. I don't know. I was just thinking, he's one of those sort of 7.5, 8 out of 10 sort of players. He was never a 9 or a 10, but he was a committed, sometimes clever, energetic sort of player who was a big part of the team at that time, I think. Yeah.
Wasn't he one of the few, Julie, who had a degree? Did he not have a degree in something or other?
From Nottingham University in Russian Studies.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually signed at the same time as Ossie and Ricky, but Keith Birkinshaw told him to finish his degree course in case he didn't make it as a footballer. So he arrived a little bit later. Steve Perryman speaks incredibly highly of him, said that, despite his degree and all that, he had a real sort of coal miner's attitude to life. He was up and at it. He would kind of run the legs off people. Is an incredibly amusing bloke. And the good news is, the well-known Spurs supporter Richard Cracknell has actually exchanged messages by text with him. So
good.
Compos mentis, and Tony Galvin says, he has a fair road he faces a fair road to recovery, therapy and treatment. But like I say, he's communicating. If he was able to communicate by text with Crackers, that's wonderful news.
It's good to hear.
Yeah, it's absolutely great to hear. And just one other thing about Tony Galvin. If we're remembering Ricky Villa's winner in the 1981 Cup final replay, nobody ever remembers that the guy who made the assist for Ricky when he started that slalom run, it was Tony Galvin, who saw him. Tony Galvin had run the ball down the left, and he'd basically run out of road, and he was absolutely knackered, and he looked around, and he suddenly saw Ricky standing in what Tony described as an innocuous position, and passed the ball to him, and of course the rest is history. But what always really impressed me was that a footballer had used the word innocuous.
Yes. Well, why not? I was on that side of the stadium and on that touchline when Tony Galvin made that barreling run. What impressed me more than anything about it was when he stopped and turned, he did it with the outside of his left foot. It was a sort of a lovely touch, a lovely skill to bring him back round the guy who was facing. And then he gave it to Ricky, and it's the ultimate assist, isn't it, Misha?
Was it like a Russian pirouette as opposed to a Russian roulette?
See what you did there.
Thanks.
But I think you've done the Russian thing there, haven't you? That's
exactly the Russian pirouette as opposed to Russian roulette. Do you know what I mean? So
clever stuff. Too clever for this podcast, to be honest with you. We don't do intellectual stuff. Well, look, I think we've covered everything, haven't we? We've got Arsenal coming up, as I think we mentioned during the course of the podcast. And, well, we'll be back next week to deconstruct our victory. Let's go round very quickly and see what sort of scorelines we can muster up. Julie.
Okay.
What do we think?
2-0. To the Arsenal.
Okay. Misha?
4-1 to Arsenal.
God, this is horrible. Kev, come on. You're the eternal optimist. Come on.
1-0 to us.
I like it. I'm going with Kev. So we've got 2 wins, 2 defeats here on the podcast, and we'll be back next week to talk about that. And we've got Paris Saint-Germain. That was rather well pronounced, wasn't it? We've got them coming up shortly after the Ars, and we'll have a chat about that as well. Plus a million other things. So my thanks to Julie and to Misha. Well done. What are we giving Misha for her first appearance on the podcast? Kev, I mean, you might be too close to this.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, but I think it was a solid.
It's a tricky one.
8 out of 10. I thought
8 out of 10, Julie?
She was good.
I'm going for 10.
Wow. No, Misha, what do you give yourself?
I think 10 out of 10 as well, yeah.
That's the kind of modesty that endears you to the pod. Well, I'm going to give you a 10 as well out of 100, though. So it's not quite as good as you think. We will be back next week on Nice One, Cyril. Come on, you Spurs.
Nice one, Cyril.